All right, welcome to a new episode of Stitches and Picks. I'm Dave.
I'm Kristen.
Today, we're going to continue our foray into the Content Inc. model and how that has shaped our perspectives in terms of researching what we want to do, how we want to do it, and who we want to speak to. So, um, we've already talked about two other concepts in the first two episodes. So if you haven't checked those out, please go check those out. Or you can bypass these conversations and just go buy the book. It's a good book. But in this sense, the a definition, and then we'll get to Kristen's project. The content tilt is based on the market and the players within the market that you want to try to have your side hustle, your side business, or your full business into. There's a couple of components to look into. The tilt is your unique way of speaking to the audience, right? With that, finding that space and the way of doing it is the hard piece. So where is there a space within the market that has little to no competition, or where can you bring unique value to the conversations that are going on in the market? It can also be a combination of all three. It could be none of them. It just varies depending on what you're trying to do. So I know in the first season, I kind of hinted at how I came to how I wanted to go to market with Beginning Guitar Online, how I discovered, my approach to this. But, Kristen, with your journeys into trying to launch casting knits this year or at the end of this season, let's talk about your market and what's going on. I know there's a couple of established players, but, give us an overview.
More than a couple. Knitting's an interesting landscape. So I originally set out you can understand the landscape from this major website that has all the patterns on it and has knitters. Not only knitters who actually do the knitting, but also the designers who are selling their patterns on there. There's like a forum. It still looks like it's a forum from 1994. So it's not even like
love those sites. Yeah.
You know what? But like at the time, it works. It's an MVP. They purposely, whatever. The point of this is not for me to defend them. I would not do. I digress. Apparently it's going to be one of those days. So just giving a forewarning. Okay. I have taken stock of the landscape of what I would call the market in terms of so this is where I was getting hung up when you were talking about market. I'm like, oh crap. Every time I've thought about this, I've been thinking about it in terms of which I'm going to say platform, because is it the website or is it one of the Instagram or is it TikTok? And I've typically been thinking about it in those buckets because those landscapes are different. And yes, they have overlap. They have very clear overlap of people who are on those different platforms. But I haven't looked at it holistically from that point of view. And I think I'm intimidated to do so because I don't know. I'm going to probably have to examine that. But examining what exists right now with this big website, with what I'm seeing other people doing, and I'm mainly getting that research from Instagram of understanding how, whether it's a knitwear designer or a knitter, it is producing content, is showing up in this space. I have a really good understanding of what's happening on Instagram because I've consumed that content constantly for years. For me to jump into that world was hella intimidating. I didn't feel like I was going to provide anything new or worthy of being heard. And so I pretty much I have a Casting Knits Instagram and I occasionally post on it and I try to be really real because I don't want to show up as who I'm looking at as my competitors as. I think I talked about this a little bit in the first season where there's these people who show up on Instagram with these really beautiful curated content. That's not who I am and that's not who I want to be and that's not who I want to speak to either. So
before you get too far down that rabbit hole, that's actually the topic for the next episode, is the channels and the whatever else.
And I don't know how to talk about this.
Okay, fine then. So the big example, and I'll link to a couple examples in the show notes here. If you've ever heard of Entrepreneurs on Fire, with John Lee Dumas and all that, if you look at what he did when he launched that particular show addressed a problem that nobody knew was a problem until it was addressed. There wasn't a business podcast that had a show every single day. So that was his unique way of going into the space of entrepreneurs or potential entrepreneurs looking for information on how to start, run, their businesses, right? So then, of course, as soon as he launched, there's a bunch of copycats that try to piggyback off of that. But that was his unique selling point. So, for me, when I was looking at Beginning Guitar Online, to your point, I was familiar with, okay, here are the big magazines that are, producing a lot of lesson content. They have the relationships with the record companies and the gear companies and whatever else, to create their own content. Then you have all these YouTubers that may or may not be valid, things, or it's artists doing kind of random lessons on the back of the tour bus, if they think about it, right? And then you have these other guitar lesson sites as kind of a third thing that were all subscription models. And if you're a beginning guitarist, you don't really know how to evaluate whether or not $40 a month is good value or if that's really expensive, right? Because compared to a Netflix subscription, that's really expensive.
Right.
So in looking in all of that, there were a lot of ways that, okay, where are the cracks in that? The magazines have the subscription model, but they're only going to be monetizing through traditional means, right? Ads, subscriptions to the physical edition, right? Those guitar lesson sites are subscription-based, digital, but again, higher barrier to entry because you have to convince people that that's, what's there. So that may or may not be a good, beginner thing. That might be more towards the intermediate advanced player than necessarily the beginning one. And I knew from teaching lessons in store that I had a lot of students that would just start on YouTube and say, well, here's what I learned on YouTube before I came in. And there would just be a lot of bad habits that were created because they were picking and choosing these random videos that were either suggested to them or they, picked them themselves. None of those groups were focusing on search engine optimization. And given my marketing background, that was, we talked about, finding the niche and finding what you can do. That was my kind of area to be like, oh, okay, so actually I can play against these big guys because I know how to choose the right keyword, optimize the pages for that. And, recently, it's taken 2 years, almost 2 years, of just producing the content to actually start seeing, hey, we're starting to rank pretty well for some of these things. But it, that was my journey into this, if that helps frame the conversation.
Because when you first started talking, I was like, I don't have this. Like, we've identified a missing link. And as you kept talking, I was like, no, I do have this. I just haven't thought about this in this way yet. But I thought it was interesting that you talk about like your go-to-market strategy part of it, your tactic of SEO. And that's a very like technology focused way to make a dent in the market.
Right.
And I think it's one approach. I think another approach is what I'm thinking of, which is like, and I think you kind of mentioned this already. It's like, how do you it's like, how do you talk to your audience? Like, that could
Right.
be the way that you're kind of making a dent in the market too. So when you were talking, I was like, oh shit, I don't have this. And then I'm like, no, I do. Like, and I think I actually just have kind of come up to this. And I started kind of talking about it in one of the last episodes. There are so many people who are like, oh, knitting a sweater. Oh, I couldn't do that. I truly believe that anybody that knits
Right.
or doesn't even knit can knit a sweater. Like, if you want to knit a sweater, you can 110% do it.
Yeah.
So, like, I think the way that I'm approaching, no one in the market is talking about the intimidation level of sweaters, like the aspirational aspect, the breaking it down and actually like telling people why something may look better on you, or like why it might be easier because of the technical skills in knitting that you'd need or whatever. And then I've broken it down further in kind of like, you said it, like search engine optimization. TikTok tends to be the place that I'm able to break into this a little bit easier for me, at least the way that I'm approaching it and the way that I'm thinking about it, because I get to have a slightly longer form content where I can be on video and show, like, hey, this is what I'm talking about. You're getting a visual representation and it's matching up to my voice and everything. So it's not just you have to look at the picture and then read the, so it makes sense. It falls in line. So I think that's going to be final answer.
Now, with again, all I know is what you've said over the
You don't
course
read
of,
knitting magazines? I'm really disappointed in you.
No, definitely not. And I think that's one of the things with what both of the sites that we're doing, right, is that you either want to learn this,
yes,
or you don't care at all.
Yep. Yep.
So on the one hand, that's really nice because you don't have to spend so much time segmenting your market or your audience into
themselves out.
different things. Yeah, like if you're searching for something related to this, you're already pretty close.
Yep.
Now, you had already talked about in previous episodes the fact that there are these pattern places.
Yeah.
Right. So their business models, their way of, addressing the knitting area, the knitting space, tends to be just pushing product, right? Pushing the patterns, pushing.
So what's interesting, it's not like it's not pushing patterns. It's a database of patterns. Both of the two major ones that I'm thinking of. And they allow you to filter and look for patterns based on your wants. So it's its own like search engine. They don't sell ads for patterns. They have not like monetized their websites in that way. They do gain money from a pattern sale. They take like a 3% percentage of the price of the pattern, which is how they sustain their business. But other than that, and they've intentionally, one of them, I don't know enough about the other one of them has intentionally done that, and is that's one aspect that they're very transparent about, because they don't want to they don't feel that it's going to add value to their users to monetize in other ways. I've kind of touched on this too, where I keep thinking about this, but in doing market research, I just need to get somebody who's got the technical chops, and I know of a few people who can connect an API to a data visualization so that I can actually pull answers to questions that I have about purchase of knitting patterns and what's actually out there and all that good stuff. So that's keep rolling around in my head, and I need to sit down and actually do it. So yeah.
Now with the audience there, where are they hanging out? Like, I know you've had a lot of success with TikTok because it's easy just to show up and shoot. But
a lot of success with finger quotes. Success for me. Please don't go onto my TikTok and be like, she has 100 followers. What are they talking about success? Yes. For me, that's success. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
But 100 followers in niche space is a good thing, right? Like,
Yes.
This is one of the things that I've always struggled with, during my day job, where it's, well, this thing only has such and such search volume. Well, if your product retails for $20,000 a pop, you only need
Yeah.
to sell one.
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
it doesn't matter. Now, if you're selling $6 guitar pick packs, then
Right.
yeah, you need some volume on that, like that,
Right.
because that's a different kind of product.
Right.
So, like any marketing conversation, it depends. It
It does
depends.
depend. At this
So,
rate, if I can continue on the same level of posting and engagement and stuff, I feel like I will be in a good spot with a very good level of audience at some point to like derive more success,
mhm.
air quote success off of it. But right now, I do consider it success. Like it's been great.
And the pattern sites, that's not necessarily what you're trying to build in the
Nope.
short term, right? So you're
I don't have any plans for that ever to be my business model.
okay. So you want to be
Um,
more of that thought leader, creator, pick your buzzword, kind of helping hand through it.
yes. Um, yes, in the world of sweaters and seamless sweaters. Uh, I haven't like I don't know. I have like 8 different things that I'd love to do and see. I this this one idea keeps rolling around in my head a lot lately, and I think it's because my daughter's getting older and like I don't know, everything that kind of has been happening lately. I don't feel like people should have to necessarily be good at something to derive enjoyment from it. So like that's I don't know. I feel like there's this level of like everyone feels like they need a level. Like I can't even articulate how this plays in exactly to this, but like there's I've got so many thoughts. I'm sorry. It's my brain is just fried. Um it's just like we should be able to enjoy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Period. We don't have to be good at it. And I feel like what's currently exists in the market is everyone's like you have like it's not with the curated content that's overly curated says to everybody you have to be perfect at it.
Right.
You have to have a perfect life.
I struggled with this, in launching the guitar site too, because I knew that like the vast majority of lessons that I taught in store, um, and a lot of the content that was being produced by a lot of the magazines was for blues and blues rock
Yeah.
playing. That's not what I play. I'll listen to it, not on a regular basis, but I'll listen to it and enjoy it and have a good time with it. But um, it would be disingenuous for me to deliver that content, in the context of join your classic rock blues band bar band, because that's just not what I play. So I have to write off that. With the curation method, I can say, hey, here's where all these other things exist. If you're interested in that, by all means, go to these other sites. They're great. They do this. They're in it, right? You want that as a teacher. You don't want me as the teacher for that. So yeah, I mean, we focused in on a couple of genres and skill sets for Chris and I, just because that's what we play. That's what would be more authentic for us. And then we'll research some of these other sites and make our opinions available, at least on which ones are worth pursuing, right? There's a really good video, and it's specific to guitar players, but it does apply to other things. I've talked about That Pedal Show, which is one of my favorite YouTube channels for guitar nerds. And one of the presenters had a solo vlog episode where he talked about only being as good as he wanted to be or as he needed to be. He never had to be the best guitar player,
Yeah.
because like Instagram and YouTube can be a very intimidating place for technique driven things, because You're like, oh my God, this person's so much better than I am. I was like, yeah, but if you don't have an interest in playing that fast or in that particular way, then it doesn't matter. Appreciate it for the technician that it is, but challenge yourself to go after what you want to be good at and what brings you the enjoyment, right?
Exactly. And so your original question for me was like, well, basically, where do you like? What's your business model where you want to see this go? I don't have an answer to that other than there are major themes that I truly value and believe in, and however this goes, I will follow those values. So if this turns into me owning, I mean, this would be like a dream, right? A warehouse that is this amazing space where people can come and try out new things like dyeing yarn and spinning yarn and needle felting and just trying shit because they just want to try shit and they don't have to be good at it. Like that would be an awesome dream. Like that would be where I could see this going. That's one very like physical manifestation of that I like. That would be awesome. But do I also feel that I need to take over the market, the knitting market, and be like the next whatever? No, I don't feel the need to do that. So that was where my head was going when I was like, the enjoyment aspect is of the hobby is where I'm like taking my business kind of thing. Like such a vague value, but that is a belief I have. So
well, and you know, part of the reason to have these conversations and part of this thing was to just say, hey, you know what? Here's the framework that has worked for many a brand, large and small, and see where we are. Do the gut check. You know, show the example of where we are. So if you don't know, you don't know, and now you have some takeaways to go, you know, research some stuff. Like one of the things that I found helpful. And this is also just the kind of, you know, nerd that I am, was to go to like Bloomberg and Seeking Alpha and those, you know, stock market observer type sites and look at what the guitar market was, right? And just to see how they were.
So they wouldn't take that as an answer.
What was that?
If you were on Shark Tank, though, they wouldn't take that as an answer of why they should invest in. I don't care what they
think. I don't care. So, yeah, good on them. I wanted to see and do a gut check on what those kind of, you know, investment media, investment types are talking about the market generally, right? What's moving it, what's not, what are the old players doing, whatever. And actually, that's an important thing. We should do a different episode on the Shark Tank bullshit.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I have thoughts on that.
Okay. We'll write that down as an idea. I might actually have to watch an episode because I haven't done it for a long time.
I mean, it's the same as it was 10 years ago. I'm pretty sure.
I mean, I have respect for a couple of them.
Same.
But yeah, okay. Anyway.
We're getting on a tangent.
All right. For anybody who's followed the ping-ponging of this episode, maybe you have a better idea of what, you know, the tilt is, how you can find it. Maybe you're just happy that you're not alone and not knowing necessarily where you're going to go with it. Either way, thank you for joining us. Thank you for hanging around. Thank you for looking at the Patreon, commenting on any of the stuff, listening, downloading, all of that. Like I said, I'll put links in the description, be on the website and the show notes. And like, subscribe, share, help us out, grow the channel. And with that, we will see you in the next episode where we'll talk about Kristen's channel strategy.
Bye.